Let us discuss about the three different classes of antifungal drugs, that is amphotericin B, caspofungin and griseofulvin. Now, among the antifungal antibiotics, we have polyenes, that is amphotericin B, nystatin, hemicin and netamycin. And secondly, we have the heterocyclic benzofuran, that is griseofulvin. These were introduced around 1960. And the third category of the antifungal antibiotics, that is echinocandins, like caspofungin, micafungin and anidulafungin. Now, the polyene antibiotics, that is amphotericin B, is the prototype, and it is obtained from Streptomyces nodosus, and it was introduced around 1956. Then we have nystatin, which is obtained from Streptomyces norsci, and hemicin obtained from Streptomyces pimpirina, and netamycin, which is obtained from Streptomyces natalensis. And netamycin was approved in the US in 1978, whereas nystatin was introduced in 1960s. Now, starting with amphotericin B, if we see the background of amphotericin B, this originally it was extracted from the Streptomyces nodosus, which is a filamentous bacterium. And in 1955, in the Squibb Institute for Medical Research, the cultures of Streptomyces was isolated from soil collected from the Orinoco River region of Venezuela. Now, this cultures where we discovered two antifungal substances were isolated from the soil culture, and this was around 1956 to 58. So these two antifungal substances were the amphotericin A and amphotericin B. Amphotericin B had better antifungal activity, and so we are using the amphotericin B. From 1960s to 1980, amphotericin B remained the only effective therapy for the treatment of invasive fungal disease until the development of the azole antifungals around 1980s. Now, if we see the chemical structure of amphotericin B is available as a yellowish powder, and the name polyene is derived from their highly double bonded structure. So the polyene antibiotic molecule, it is a macrocyclic ring, and one side has 7 unconjugated double bonds and is highly lipophilic, while the other side is hydrophilic with many OH groups. Therefore, the nature is amphoteric, and that is the basis of its name, that is amphotericin B. There are polar amino sugars and carboxylic acid groups are present at one end in some polyenes. All the polyenes are insoluble in water and unstable in the aqueous medium. Now, coming to the mechanism of action, the polyene antibiotics, they have high affinity for ergosterol, which is present in the fungal cell membrane, and they combine with it and get inserted into the cell membrane. Several polyene molecules, they orient themselves together in such a way that it forms a micropore in the cell membrane. Cell permeability is increased and cell contents, they leak out. Fungus swells up and fungus dies, and it leads to the fungicidal action of the amphotericin B. It is said that the cholesterol which is present in the host cell membrane closely resembles the ergosterol. So polyenes, they can also bind to the cholesterol as well, but it binds with a lesser affinity, and therefore we can say that the selectivity of action of polyenes is low, and amphotericin B is one of the most toxic systemically used antibiotic. Amphotericin B also enhances the immunity in animals, and this action may aid in immunocompromised individuals in handling the fungal infections. And as far as the different polyenes are concerned, amphotericin B is the least toxic polyene, and it does not have any activity against the bacteria because bacteria do not have sterols, and so they are unaffected by the polyenes. Now, if we come to the molecular mechanism of action of the amphotericin B, we can see that how the amphotericin B polyene molecules, they aggregate and they orient themselves to form a micropore in the form of a canal in the fungal cell membrane. So in the diagram, we can see how the amphotericin B molecules, they aggregate and they form a micropore in the fungal cell membrane. The inner surface of the pore is formed by hydrophilic side of the amphotericin B molecules, through which the iron, amino acids, and other water-soluble substances leak out through the pore. The outer surface is formed by the lipophilic side of the amphotericin B molecules, and these are stabilized by interaction with the ergosterol. So in this diagram, we can we can see that the amphotericin B interacts with ergosterol in the fungal cell membrane, forming a pore, that is a form of a canal. Due to formation of the canal, that is the micropore in the cell membrane, the cell membrane permeability is increased, and we can see that potassium and other small molecules, they move out through the pore, and fungus swells up, causing the cell death, and this is responsible for the fungicidal action of the amphotericin B. If you see the antifungal spectrum, amphotericin B is active against wide range of yeast and fungi like the Candida albicans, Histoplasma capsulatum, Cryptococcus neoformans, Blastomyces dermatidis, Coccidioideoamitis, Torulopsis, Rhodotorula, Aspergillus, and Sporothrix. The dermatophytes are ineffective. It is fungicidal at high concentration and fungistatic at low concentration, and it is also active against certain protozoa like the Leishmania. Coming to the pharmacokinetics of amphotericin B, it is not absorbed orally but can be given orally for intestinal candidiasis without any systemic toxicity. It is insoluble in water and unstable in the aqueous medium. So it is given intravenously as a suspension, which is made with the help of the deoxycholate, because deoxycholate, it improves the solubility of the amphotericin B. It is widely distributed in the body, but penetration in the CSF is poor. It has an elimination T-half of 15 days, and this long period of T-half is because the amphotericin B binds to the sterols in tissues and to the lipoproteins in the plasma and stays in the body for a longer period. It is 60% of the amphotericin B is metabolized in liver, and it is excreted very slowly in the urine and bile. So no dose adjustment is needed in the kidney and liver disease, because as we know that 60% is metabolized in the liver, and as far as kidney is concerned, slow excretion takes place in the kidney. So the urinary concentration of the active drug is low. Coming to the drug dosage, orally 50 to 100 milligram 4 times a day. It is used in the intestinal moniliasis. The oral preparations are not available widely, and they are used for the gastrointestinal condition, that is in the intestinal moniliasis. But this is replaced by nystatin and fluconazole. Then topically, we can give the amphotericin B for the vaginitis. Also, 3% eardrops are there for treating the otomycosis. For systemic mycosis, we have the conventional amphotericin B, and as we know that the amphotericin B deoxycholate is the for IV administration. The amphotericin B is used as a suspension, which is made with help of deoxycholate. So this is known as the conventional amphotericin B. This is the original formulation of the amphotericin B, and it is referred as the conventional amphotericin B. It is available as a dry powder along with the deoxycholate for dispersion before use. The first, it is suspended in 10 ml of water, and then it is diluted in 500 ml of the glucose solution. Saline is not used for dilution because saline makes the suspension coarse, and this should be avoided. It is amphotericin B is insoluble in the normal saline at a pH of 7. So it only the 500 ml of glucose solution is used for dilution. And initially the test dose is given over 20 minutes, and if there is no serious reaction, then the dose is infused slowly. And total dose of the amphotericin B is about 3 to 4 grams, which is given over 2 to 3 months. Then intrathecal injections of the amphotericin B is in a dose of 0.5 milligram is given twice weekly for treatment of the fungal meningitis. Then we have the liposomal amphotericin B. The liposomal amphotericin B, it produces similar blood levels, equivalent blood levels like the conventional amphotericin B, and it has a similar efficacy like the conventional amphotericin B, but it has less of the toxicity, like it causes less acute reaction and there is less nephrotoxic potential as compared to the less acute reaction and less nephrotoxicity as compared to the conventional amphotericin B. Therefore, the action of liposomal amphotericin B is more satisfactory and higher doses can also be infused, although it is little costlier than the conventional amphotericin B. The liposomal amphotericin B is specifically indicated in empirical therapy of febrile neutropenic patients, those neutropenic patients who are not responding to the antibacterial antibiotics. It is also indicated in critically ill deep mycosis cases and in the treatment of Kala-Azar. Now, in this table, we can see the characteristic of lipid formulations and their comparison with the conventional amphotericin B, which is conventional amphotericin B is the most effective drug which is given in the treatment of deep mycosis. But all the lipid formulations, they are much costlier than the conventional amphotericin B. And the liposomal formulation, if we see, that is LAMP, that is liposomal amphotericin B, LAMP. This formulation is the costliest formulation. But as far as nephrotoxicity is concerned, this is reduced, as we can see in the table, and the tolerability is increased. So lipid formulations, they are used when patient cannot tolerate the conventional amphotericin B. The liposomal amphotericin B, they are more satisfactory because large doses, you can see high rates, about 3 to 5 milligram per kg per day can be given. So higher doses can be given, and in order to improve the tolerability of the IV infusion, and there is reduced toxicity, as well as we can achieve the targeted delivery of the amphotericin. Whereas if you see the conventional amphotericin B, the daily dose is less than 1 milligram per kg per day, depending upon the tolerability of the patient. Now, this active drug, the amphotericin B, it is packaged in lipid delivery vehicles, such as we can see in the liposomal amphotericin B, lecithin and biodegradable phospholipids are used. And this liposomal amphotericin B, they were approved in 1997, and we can see other delivery lipid delivery vehicles are used, like the ABLC and ABCD. They are using the cholesterol sulfate and the dimyristeriol phospholipids as the lipid vehicle. So these different type of lipid formulations are available. The liposomal amphotericin B is there. Then the ABLC is the amphotericin B lipid complex, and ABCD is the amphotericin B colloidal dispersion. So these different types of lipid delivery vehicles, they have high affinity for the fungal ergosterol as compared to the human cholesterol. And the preferential binding of the lipid vehicle to the fungal cells, it also leads to reduction in the toxicity to the human cells and also maintains the efficacy. So effective dose, even if it is higher dose given, this is also can be given safely and it can be used without any problem. Then there is the lipase enzyme, which is present in certain fungi, and this is also beneficial because it releases the free amphotericin locally at the site of the fungal infection. Now, there are different features of these liposomal preparations, and it is seen that they produce milder acute reaction, and they can be used in patients with who are not able to tolerate the infusion of the conventional amphotericin B. They are causing the lower nephrotoxicity, they are causing minimal anemia. And another very good advantage is the lipid formulations, they deliver the amphotericin B, particularly to the reticuloendothelial cells in the liver and spleen. And especially it is valuable in Kala-Azar and in the immunocompromised patients. So it is useful in the visceral leishmaniasis. So coming to the adverse effects, the toxicity of amphotericin B is high and it occurs acute reactions they occur with each infusion, and it consists of chills, fever, aches, and pain, hypotension. And due to the violent chills and fever, the drug is nicknamed as shake and bake. Also, nausea, vomiting, dyspnea, they can take place, and it can last for about 2 to 5 hours. It usually occurs due to release of the cytokines like the interleukin and tumor necrosis factor alpha. And when the reaction is severe, the dose should be increased gradually, and the intensity of reaction decreases with the continued medication. And sometimes injection of hydrocortisone 0.6 milligram per kg is given with the amphotericin B infusion. This reduces the intensity of the reaction. And thrombophlebitis of the injected vein can also occur. Nephrotoxicity, long-term toxicity, nephrotoxicity is the most important one, and it occurs uniformly and is dose-related. Manifestations are azotemia, reduced GFR, acidosis, hypokalemia, and inability to concentrate the urine. The nephrotoxicity reverses very slowly, and many times it is incomplete after stopping of the therapy. And as far as anemia is concerned, most patients, they develop slowly progressing anemia, which is due to the bone marrow depression. This anemia is reversible. And last but not the least, CNS toxicity also occurs on intrathecal injection, like headache, vomiting, and nerve pulses can also take place. It appears to be, amphotericin B appears to be relatively safe in pregnancy. So coming to the uses of amphotericin B, topically it is used for orally in the intestinal molliasis, and for treating the vaginal and cutaneous candidiasis and fungal corneal ulcers and otomycosis. Systemic mycosis, amphotericin B is the most effective drug for practically all types of systemic mycosis, and it is the gold standard of antifungal therapy for candidiasis, cryptococcosis, histoplasmosis, coccidioidomycosis, plastomycosis, sporotrichosis, paracoccidioidomycosis, aspergillosis, and mucormycosis. However, because of higher toxicity of amphotericin B, the azole antifungals, they are now preferred in conditions where their efficacy approaches equal to the amphotericin B. So in such condition, azoles are much safer alternative. Then serious fungal infections in the immunocompromised patients, initial induction therapy is given with amphotericin B, and later on continuation therapy, it can be managed by giving the azole antifungal drugs, which are safer alternatives. Then in febrile neutropenia, the empirical use of intravenous amphotericin B, it is given in the neutropenic patients, those cases where the fever is not responding to the intravenous bactericidal antibiotics. Then last but not the least, leishmaniasis and other protozoal infection. Amphotericin B is most effective drug for resistant cases of Kala-Azar and mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. It is used for life-threatening protozoal infections such as the visceral leishmaniasis, and also in the treating the primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. Then interactions. Flucytosine has a supraadditive action with amphotericin B, and wherever the infections are there, fungal infections, and if the fungi is sensitive to both the drugs, then amphotericin B is given along with the flucytosine, and amphotericin B increases the penetration of flucytosine into the fungus. As far as aminoglycosides, vancomycin, cyclosporin, and other nephrotoxic drugs are concerned, they enhance the renal impairment caused by the amphotericin B. So it has been seen that amphotericin B is a highly effective drug since it is being used since the last 5 to 6 decades, and it is a very effective drug, and basically it has the low incidence of the drug resistance. Then coming to another polyene, that is the nystatin. The name is derived from the laboratory, New York State Health Laboratories, where it was developed. And nystatin is obtained from Streptomyces norsci. It is structurally similar to amphotericin B with the same mechanism of action, but it is more toxic for systemic use. And therefore, nystatin is exclusively used topically for treating the superficial candidiasis. That is, it is used for treating either the cutaneous or the vaginal candidiasis. And it is different uses are there. And so because of the higher systemic toxicity, it is not given for systemic, it is used only topically for the superficial infections. So it is used for the superficial candidiasis as a 1 lakh unit per gram ointment. In monilial diarrhea, it is used given orally as it is not absorbed, and it is given as a dose of 5 lakh unit tablet 3 times a day. The only side effect is nausea and bad taste. Then in monilial vaginitis also it can be given, but the azole antifungals, they are effective and preferred now. And in oral thrush, nystatin is applied on the oral thrush, but clotrimazole is preferred now. And in oral thrush, the nystatin is given as a suspension in glycerin. And it is also used for the cutaneous and corneal candidiasis. This is treated by nystatin, 1 lakh unit per gram. Corneal candidiasis treated by the ophthalmic ointment. It is ineffective in dermatophytosis, and resistance does not occur. Then coming to Hemicin, the name is based on the institute Hindustan Antibiotics Limited, Pimpri in Pune in India. And also this Hemicin and Netamycin, both these drugs, they are less effective orally, and the oral absorption is poor. So they are used only topically. And Hemicin is used for oral, cutaneous, and vaginal candidiasis. It is also used for automycosis caused by Aspergillus, and also for treating the trichomoniasis. Then we come to Netamycin. Netamycin is a broad spectrum antifungal, and it is used topically mainly for treating the vaginal candidiasis and trichomoniasis. And this Netamycin is an antifungal medication. It is seen that it is used to treat certain fungal infection around the eye, that is infection in the eyelids, conjunctiva, and cornea. It is used as a eye drop, and for treating those fungal infection caused by Candida, Aspergillus, Cephalosporium, Fusarium, and Penicillium. And another use of Netamycin is it is used in the food industry as a preservative, so that it stops the fungal outgrowth in the dairy products and other foods. Then coming to the second category of the antifungal antibiotics, we have echinocandins, which were introduced recently in 2010. These echinocandins, they are a new class of potent semisynthetic antifungal antibiotics having low toxicity as compared to the amphotericin B. We have caspofungin, which is the first prototype member, and it is active against Candida and Aspergillus. Even it is active against strains of Candida which have become resistant to azoles. And these strains which are resistant to Candida strains, which are resistant to azoles, these are also susceptible to the caspofungin. Pharmacokinetics, it has to be infused. It is not absorbed orally. So it's because it is not absorbed orally, so it has to be infused intravenously as a freshly prepared aqueous solution. And it is distributed into tissues, does not enter the CSF. Metabolism is extensive. Metabolites are excreted in the urine and feces, and it has a T-half of 10 hours. It is a preferred drug for treating the deep and invasive candidiasis, esophageal candidiasis, and non-responsive invasive aspergillosis. Because of good tolerability, caspofungin is also used in neutropenic immunocompromised patients whose fever is not responding to the antibacterial antibiotics. If you see the adverse effects, sometimes the acute febrile reaction occurs with the intravenous infusion of the caspofungin, and rash, vomiting, dyspnea, hypokalemia, and joint pain may also occur. But the patient acceptability is good, tolerability of the drug is good, and organs toxicity is not noted. The dose is 70 milligram of the loading dose infused intravenously over 1 hour, and this is followed by 50 milligram intravenous dose daily. Then we see the mechanism of action of the echinocandins. The echinocandins have a mechanism of action which is different from other antifungal drugs. It inhibits the synthesis of beta glucan, which is we know that the beta glucan is an important unique component of the fungal cell wall. It causes weakening of the cell wall by the caspofungin, which leads to osmotic susceptibility of the fungal cell, and this leads to cell wall lysis, cell death, and the fungicidal action of the caspofungin. In this diagram, we can see in the diagram that there is the cross-linking between the chitin, which is a fibrillar polysaccharide, and the beta-1,3 glucan. These cross-linking gives toughness to the fungal cell wall. And we can see the presence of the beta-1,3 glucan synthase. These beta glucans, they are synthesized in the fungal plasma membrane by the complex of beta-glucan synthase enzymes. And this beta-glucan synthase enzyme is inhibited by caspofungin. It is inhibited by the, you can see in the diagram, the glucan synthase inhibitor. So this is the caspofungin, which inhibits the beta-glucan synthase enzyme. So on inhibiting the beta-glucan synthase enzyme, there is depletion of the beta-glucans in the cell wall. And because of depletion of beta-glucans in the cell wall, it causes weakening of the fungal cell wall. Now coming after the caspofungin, we can see the another echinocandin, that is the micafungin, which is approved in India, and it has properties similar to the caspofungin, and it has a longer T half of 12 to 15 hours, and it is used in esophageal candidiasis, in candidemia. It is also used in prophylaxis of candida infection in bone marrow transplant patient, but not for aspergillosis. So prophylaxis, it is used only for the candida infection, but not for the aspergillosis. Then the third echinocandin is the anidulafungin, which also has further longer T half than the caspofungin and micafungin. It is about 36 hours, and it has similar indications like the caspofungin. Now we come to the third antifungal antibiotic, and that is griseofulvin, one of the early antibiotic which was introduced in 1960. And griseofulvin is extracted from Penicillium griseofulvum, and because of lack of antibacterial activity, once it was discovered, little attention was paid to it, and the bacteria was also insensitive. So it was not very much useful for the antibacterial activity. But this griseofulvin, it was extracted from Penicillium griseofulvum, and clinical utility was demonstrated in 1960 against the dermatophytosis. It has a fungistatic action against most dermatophytes, including the epidermophyton, trichophyton, and microsporum, which are causing the superficial mycosis. And it has no activity against the candida or other fungi which are causing the deep mycosis. So we can see that griseofulvin is very useful against the dermatophytes. And dermatophytes, they actively concentrate the griseofulvin. Because of this, it accounts for its selective toxicity. So this is the reason, because dermatophytes, they actively concentrate the griseofulvin, so they are selectively toxic to the griseofulvin is useful against the dermatophytes. If we see the pharmacokinetics, absorption from the GIT is in gastrointestinal tract is incomplete because of the very low water solubility, and absorption is improved with fats. So with the fatty diet, it is improved, and by microfining the drug particles. Griseofulvin is keratophilic. That means it gets deposited in the keratin forming cells of the skin, hair, and nails. It is largely metabolized and primarily by methylation. We have one metabolite, 6-methyl griseofulvin, and it is excreted in urine. The T half of griseofulvin is 24 hours, but that is 1 day, but it persists for weeks in the skin and the keratin. As far as adverse effect is concerned, the toxicity is low, and usually it is not very serious. Headache is the commonest adverse effect. Gastrointestinal disturbances, central nervous system symptoms, and peripheral neuritis occur occasionally. And if rash, photoallergy, and hepatitis, if this takes place, then it should lead to stoppage of the drug. We've seen the mechanism of action of the griseofulvin. We know that inside the fungus, during cell division and mitosis, the microtubules, they play a very important role for the mitosis of the fungi. Microtubules are involved in the mitotic splitting, as well as when the cytoplasm of the eukaryotic cell, they split to form the two daughter cells. Griseofulvin binds to the microtubules and interfere with their function. And on the other side, we can see that griseofulvin is deposited in the newly forming skin. So through circulation, because the griseofulvin is given orally, so after through the circulation, once the drug gets deposited in the skin, it prevents the fungal invasion of the keratin. So because it is having the fungistatic action and not the fungicidal action, the newly formed keratin is not invaded by the fungus. But the fungus which is persisting in the already infected keratin, but the fungus which persists in the already infected keratin because till it is shed off. So the newly formed keratin is not invaded by the fungus. So it acts as a fungistatic action. But as we know that the already infected keratin contains the fungus. So till it is shed off, the fungus will persist in the infected keratin. So the griseofulvin is useful when it is deposited in the newly forming skin, and it protects the skin from getting infected. So we can see here that griseofulvin binds to the microtubules and interfere with their function, and thereby it causes inhibition of mitosis in the fungal cell, and it affects the cell division. So coming to the different interactions, griseofulvin is enzyme inducer. It induces the cytochrome P450 enzymes, and it hastens the warfarin metabolism. It also causes failure of oral contraceptives, and because of the microsomal induction, and it is used orally in dermatophytosis. And as we know that through the circulation, it reaches the skin, it gets deposited in the skin, and it prevents the fungal invasion of the keratin. So it acts as a fungistatic action. And griseofulvin is mostly reserved for cases with a large body surface involvement, and that is in the onychomycosis and tinea capitis. Majority of the localized tinea infections, they are treated with topical agents like the systemic azoles and terbinafine, which are more efficacious and preferred now. But when it is involving the large body surface area, then griseofulvin is reserved for these cases. It is also useful in the athlete's foot, and the dose is 125 to 250 milligram 4 times a day with meals. The duration of the treatment depends upon the site of the infection and the turnover rate of the keratin. So if it is the area is the scalp, that is tinea capitis, then duration of treatment is for 4 weeks. Or if the area is involving the hair, then duration of treatment is also for 4 weeks. Then if it is the tinea pedis, that is it is involving the area involved is the palm or the soles, then the duration of treatment is for 6 to 8 weeks. If it is tinea anguem, that is involving the nails, fingernails, for 6 to 8 weeks treatment, and toenails for 10 to 12 months treatment duration is given. Then for tinea cruris involving the groin, the duration of treatment is for 3 weeks. And also for tinea corporis, that is involving the body, the duration of treatment is for 3 weeks. Because we know that griseofulvin has a fungistatic action and not fungicidal action, the newly formed keratin is not invaded by the fungus. But the fungus persists in the already infected keratin till it sheds off. So the duration of treatment is depending on this. So lastly, we summarize the pharmacokinetic parameters, adverse effects and uses of the 3 classes of the antifungal antibiotics. We can see here that amphotericin B, the water solubility is negligible and the oral absorption is also negligible, and the route of administration is by the intravenous route, and CSF concentration is poor, and it has adverse effects like nephrotoxicity and anemia, and it is used for the systemic mycosis. Here I have not mentioned the T-half. The T-half of amphotericin B is about 15 days, and the elimination T-half is 15 days, and the reason for this is amphotericin B binds to the sterols in the tissues and lipoproteins in the plasma, and it remains in the body for a long period. So this is the reason for having a very long T-half of 15 days. Then as far as echinocandins are concerned, caspofungin has a high water solubility, but oral absorption is less. and it is given intravenously, and it is CSF concentration is poor, and adverse effects are mild gastrointestinal upset, and it is also used for the systemic mycosis. Again, here the T half is not mentioned, but we know very well that caspofungin has a T half of 10 hours, micafungin of 12 to 15 hours, and anidulafungin has the longest T half of 36 hours. Then coming to griseofulvin, it has a very low water solubility, and the oral absorption is also less, but the oral absorption is not consistent, but it is enhanced with fatty diet, or if we use the micro-sized or ultra micro-sized particles, then this can greatly improve the absorption of the griseofulvin when it is given orally. And the adverse effects are mild adverse effects like headache, nausea, vomiting. And we know that griseofulvin is used for treating the superficial mycosis, that is for dermatophytosis. And as far as the T half is concerned, it is about 24 hours, that is 1 day, but it persists in the skin and keratin for weeks. And the plasma T half is 24 hours or 1 day, but as we know that it remains for even a longer time in the skin and keratin for weeks altogether, even after the discontinuation of the drug. So we can conclude that amphotericin B, caspofungin, griseofulvin, these are drugs. They are effective systemically, and their use, amphotericin B is used by intravenous infusion, and caspofungin also, it is used by the intravenous infusion, and griseofulvin is used also systemically, but it is given orally. Amphotericin B is a polyene. It is having a broad spectrum action. It is having a fungicidal action, but it is highly toxic, and it is used for the systemic mycosis. Whereas caspofungin is an echinocandin, which is fungicidal, and it is also used for systemic mycosis. It is specifically used for deep invasive candidiasis and aspergillosis. And griseofulvin is a heterocyclic benzofuran. It is having fungistatic action, and it is used only for superficial mycosis, that is for treatment of the dermatophytosis. It has no activity against the subcutaneous or the deep mycosis.